Hello everyone, today's lesson is lesson 67, identifying AM and PM, identifying noon and midnight, and identifying dozen and half a dozen. So when my clock looks like this, the time is 12 o'clock. There are some other names for this time. 12 o'clock could also be known as noon or as midnight. So at midnight and noon, both of the hands point at the 12. And at midnight, it's the middle of the night, which is where we get the word midnight. It's the middle of the night. At noon, both of the hands point at 12, but it's in the afternoon. The day is half gone. Okay, so each day, there are also two 9 o'clocks. We can have 2 at 9 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock at night. So we have to tell people which 9 o'clock we mean. So if I just say, meet me at 9 o'clock, no one will know what time that is. So any time before noon is called AM. 9 AM. Okay. Midnight is also known as 12 AM. Okay. Now, 9 o'clock in the evening or at night is called 9 o'clock PM. Okay. So a lot of people call noon 12 PM. Now, AM stands for the word ante-meridiem, which is Latin for before noon. And PM stands for post-meridiem, which is Latin for afternoon. So we're going to practice writing AM and PM times. So here I have my clock, and it's in the morning. So what time is it? Well, it's 10 o'clock, so I know it's 10 o'clock. And since it's in the morning, I know it's 10 o'clock AM. Okay. So what if I change my clock and have it pointing at this time? And I say that it is in the afternoon. Well, it's 1 o'clock, and since it's in the afternoon, we would say it's 1 o'clock PM. Okay. What about if I have this time? And I tell you that it's in the evening. Okay, so if it's in the evening, then this would be 10 o'clock PM, because it's at night. All right. Now, how many hours are there between noon and 2 p.m.? So if we look at our clock, between noon, which is when the minute hand stands up here, and 2 o'clock, there's 2 hours. So there's 2 hours in between noon and 2 p.m. How many hours are there between noon and 6 p.m.? So looking at our clock again, so we start at noon and we go to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 hours in between noon and 6 p.m. Do you see a pattern? So the next problem says, how many hours are there between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m.? So if we go to 2 p.m. and count to 5, we have 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 hours in between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. What about between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m.? So we start at 6 a.m. and we count forward to 8. Okay, so we go 1 hour, 2 hours. So there's 2 hours in between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. What about between 9 p.m. and midnight? So we start at 9 p.m. and we're going to go to midnight. So we go 1, 2, 3 hours. So there's 3 hours between these times. Okay, how many hours are there from noon to midnight? Well, if we start at the 12, Okay, and we go around until we get to the 12 again. That's going to be 12 hours. Okay, so there are 12 hours between noon and midnight. There are also 12 a.m. hours and 12 p.m. hours. So if I wanted to know how many hours there are from midnight to noon, that's another 12 hours. So one day equals 24 hours. All right, how many months are there in a year? Well, we can see here that there are 12 months in a year. And how many inches are in a foot? Well, we can see that there are 12 inches in a foot. Okay, so you notice all these things all have 12 in them. There's a special word that can mean 12 of something, and that word is dozen. For example, if I wanted to buy eggs at the store, they usually come in packs of 1 dozen. Okay, so let's see if a dozen eggs is the same as 12 eggs. We'll count by twos to check. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yeah, so a dozen eggs is the same as 12. Now, sometimes we might have one egg that's colored green. Or let's just say we have an egg that's colored green. And I want to write that as a fraction. So if one egg that's green, and out of the 12, I would say that 1/12 of the eggs were green. Okay. So if I have, now let's say I have half a dozen eggs. Okay. So a half a dozen is going to be half of the eggs in this container. So if we look, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 eggs makes half of a container. So a half a dozen just means that we have 6. So we know that because 6/12 is the same as 1/2. Okay, or half a dozen. All right, so if I have half a year, how many months is that? Well, half a year would be the same as 6 months. Okay, if I have half a foot, that would be 6 inches. Okay, and that's all for today's lesson. Good luck on your homework.